Cool. But I don't know if you listen to many or whatever, but we're really going to shoot for just like 45 minutes, just pretty, honest, authentic dialogue. Just, get your story, talk about it. And then, like John said, just chat shop. Okay. Do you have a hard cutoff though? Just so we know, like, do you have anything at 2 weeks?
No, my wife just took the kids to the grandparents' place about 10 minutes down the road. So that kind of frees me up. So
gotcha. So the longer the better, basically.
The longer the better. The longer the better. Yeah. My afternoon is free. So.
Cool. No, we'll probably keep it right around like 40, 50 minutes. We found that's a pretty good sweet spot. So John and I will do a quick intro. Then we'll bring you in, kind of let you introduce yourself. So a couple minutes, just who you are, where you're from, what you do, and we'll just go from there. You got any questions for us?
For the video, I think it'll be kind of weird because my webcam is like right there, but you're right here. So even though I'm talking to you, I'm looking at you, but the webcam's there. So it's kind of, for the video experience, it may be kind of off, but
that's fine.
Yeah. Okay, I think we realized that nobody's really watching the videos anyway.
It's all right.
We have a couple.
Yeah.
No sweat. Cool. All right, John, you good?
I am good. Just want to close one thing because this thing's not fucking playing nice right now. All right, I think we're good. We're good.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Investing Experience. I'm your host, Chris Grenzig. With me, as always, John Cohen. How we doing?
We're good. We're underwriting deals. We're one of the crazy groups right now.
I thought.
I've been talking to a bunch of people. The inflow of deals over the last week was just crazy. I think, I don't want to say the world's ending, but I think people are getting an uneasy feeling. I think, April's in. We had a great collections month almost across the board. I'm just going through some final reports now, but I think, we were in the 90s across almost every property. So we did, our April's better than expected. I'm interested to see how the first weekend in May pans out, but overall, I'm excited. I'm excited.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was a very interesting 5 or 6 weeks, especially considering how bad some people thought it was going to be. I mean, speaking with our Jacksonville managers, they just thought it was going to be the worst and ended up not being nearly as bad as we thought. I think a lot of people are more optimistic, at least about the rental market, at least multifamily. Some other areas, assets and investments have been hurt significantly more. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens in May. Unluckily, Florida's doing the worst job ever getting people their unemployment checks. I don't know. I think Ohio's doing a decent job, but across the board, just kind of sucking. But hopefully those will start picking up. Hopefully claims will keep coming down. Hopefully unemployment halts, doesn't keep trending upward, and we can start reopening and going from there. And I think we won't spend the whole podcast talking about it, but I think our guest being in Atlanta, we'll have some interesting things to talk about for the past week as they've opened up, and hopefully those will be the conversations we start having instead of the conversations 4 or 5 weeks ago was what are you doing to shut down? Maybe now it's time for the conversation to be what are you doing to open up, and hopefully from there that's it. Hopefully it doesn't go back down again. But
and then the positive thing here is the unemployment week after week has come down, right? It looks week after week, there's less claims going in.
Yeah.
I do believe that regardless, it's still going to be high unemployment for quite some time. But overall, like I said, I think, awesome guest in Georgia. So I think he can speak to, the first state that sort of said they would be opening, right? There's some states that never, really closed, but this is the first, major city I would think that's opening, ton of people, a lot of job growth, a lot of population growth over the last 5 years, 10 years. So I think it's going to be interesting to see. I know, my mom and wife would probably be jealous that your wife and kids are allowed to go see their grandparents because I think that they're dying to see the baby. But without further ado, I mean, let's, Rashad, why don't you introduce yourself, tell us about you, and, let's go from there.
Well, thanks for inviting me on, guys. I really appreciate it. Probably my first podcast experience as a guest.
There you go.
So thanks for the opportunity. Atlanta-based investor, real estate, multifamily, land, residential, even though I've pretty much sold a small portfolio of my holdings late 2018. So, Marine Corps vet, former engineer, business unit manager, stay-at-home dad.
There you go. That's a nice one. I'm going to start adding that to mine. When people say, what do you do? Instead of saying that I own a company, I'm just saying stay-at-home dad. My wife goes to work and she puts the grinding hours in while I get to play with my daughter all the time. I like that.
Oh yeah. My wife, she commented the other day, it's like, man, I don't know how you do it day in, day out with these kids. I have a 7-year-old daughter and a 2-year-old son. So they keep me quite busy. And in terms of business, it's really shifted the dynamic of what I need to do on a day-to-day basis. Looking for opportunities where less of my time is needed, so I can, free up more of my time for my kids. And,
So speaking of less time needed, I think it's an interesting segue. When you first started your real estate world, coming from the background that you had, it's not what you're doing today. So, with the kids and with more time focused on, something that's a little bit made automated, have you changed? What's changed maybe financially from a standpoint of not what you could afford or what you want to make, but you're valuing your time more than you're necessarily valuing, time is the most important asset we have. So what do you think you've done differently from some of the holdings you've sold out of, some of the deals you did, some of the stuff you were originally looking at to today, and why have you done that?
Well, since I've gotten with a group with Jonathan Twombly, really been more focused on like market cycles and the like. And what I've noticed is that you and I discussed it, John. Like, there's a lot of deals that are just way overpriced. Nothing makes sense, or at least most of the stuff just didn't make sense. And I was finding that a lot of my time was spent just, evaluating deal after deal after deal. And, the grind of doing that day after day, it's like, you kind of take a step back and say, okay, since we're at the top of the market, we've kind of been there since 2016, if I'm not mistaken. What can I do differently? What moves can I make in real estate that don't involve so much leverage, where I can use my own capital? Land has been one of those opportunities. I've done one prehab deal maybe a few years back, which I thought was pretty good. But, just looking at different stuff to where I can set up systems to maybe like a mailer type of thing. And then, I'm talking strictly about my land business right now, whereas before, as in the multifamily world, I would look at deals daily. I would put out there like an unofficial offer to a local broker. And of course, he and I would laugh and he's like, okay, very funny, and that's pretty much been like the day to day previously. But now it's like, okay, I got to set up a system which allows me to maybe settle something once a month, kick off a few thousand mailers, see what kicks back, and then do my due diligence from there.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because, as I said earlier, we've gotten an overwhelming amount of deals over the last week, and I felt like I was brushing off an old textbook. Like, I took out our model and I was like, because normally for the last 2 years, if you give me, like this right here is like the notes, right? Like, it's a pen and paper, and I'm like, they want 10 million, it's worth 6. Like, I never had to dive into the details, but the deals recently, I'm like, oh shit, I had to look up an if-then format in on Google because I forgot how to do it. So it's like, I completely get that. It's sort of like, I was going through a rent roll again. I'm like, wow, this is actually interesting going back through that stuff. But you're right. I mean, it's been very difficult over the last, whatever, let's call it 24 months, that deals just weren't working. And, I could see frustration from any investor, whether you're a super experienced investor or someone that, wasn't, how is this going to work? I mean, I spent so much time going through stuff, and I'm never going to be the top guy at the table unless I just came into an influx of capital that didn't care or whatever that is. So I think that's interesting to see that, that time value is more important than, okay, hey, instead of persistently trying to bang my head against the ground, let's wait for something to happen, maybe an economic shift or a pandemic or something like that, where then maybe I can go back into that. But in the interim, let me see if I can figure out something that systematizes that a little bit easier, and I can spend more time doing what I want to do. So I think that's an interesting way to look at it.
And going back to the time savings, back when I was looking at multifamily pretty seriously, I mean, I still keep in touch with my local broker network, but, I was looking at other markets and kind of chasing the rabbits of other markets. I scoping out deals in Florida. I've been to Jackson, scoping out that deal. You mentioned you had a deal in Jackson. I just happened to be there around the same time that we were talking. It's like, oh, I haven't had a deal in Jackson. So I checked out that deal and just scoping out that area and just looking at other areas beyond Atlanta, because Atlanta was like one of those top 6 markets that was just extremely frothy. I meet up with out of town investors from far away as California, and they would meet with me here. We'd somehow link up on LinkedIn, and we meet up with a couple of local brokers, a local syndicator. That was enlightening, but at the same time, it's like, man, this is really this multifamily thing is really becoming a little bit too hot and serious. So,
but what I think is interesting that most people don't do, because I know people that were hell bent on buying a deal in an area, and they just, even when I bought my first property in Columbus, Ohio, I remember I had a friend who was looking as well, and he was looking like 2 years before I bought my first deal. Like, how do you find that? I said, well, it was a direct mail campaign. It was a little different. It didn't come through a broker, but he kept blaming, the market and what investors would pay for deals. And he never really, he never took back and maybe looked in the mirror and said, maybe I'm just underwriting wrong, or maybe I'm just not doing it right, or maybe, and he wasn't willing to move, right? You said, you looked in Atlanta, didn't figure it out, switched. And, like I said, we got out of all our tertiary markets for the most part. We have one deal left, but that Jackson deal, we actually sold out of, and was a great return. We did really well on it. Yeah. We, luckily, I think we timed that one really well. But yeah. I think that just being aware, people will say shiny object syndrome, but I would argue that if you do the same thing over and over again, it's a definition of insanity. And being a little bit flexible until the time comes for you to strike again, I think is an interesting component that I think that you would love to get back into multifamily. Maybe this is the straw that broke the camel's back to get you back in. But can you talk about maybe how shiny object syndrome has maybe helped push you in the direction towards land, or what you're doing now from where you were 2, 3, 4 years ago?
Yeah. Just in terms of checking out different markets and just on the grind of, flying here, flying there, you kind of take a step back. And for about close to a year, I took a step back entirely from real estate. I was looking at other business avenues like e-commerce and this, that, and the other thing, buying up businesses and just kind of educating myself in that space. And I kind of fall into the same thing where a lot of these assets were just way overvalued, way overpriced. And so I kind of made my way back in real estate because, I had a pretty strong network in terms of not just here in Atlanta, but just nationwide, of just being with in the Jake and Gino community, for example. And that's how I met with you through Gino.
Yep.
And the Jonathan Twombly community. So I don't know, just if there's a way to sit back and just, I'm sorry, I'm losing my train of thought, but in terms of trying to save time, sometimes you just need to take a step back, and just evaluate things as they are and see what moves you should make. Maybe the right move is just to take a step back and just kind of observe how things come and see how things played out. Now, no one really anticipated this whole COVID-19 business. This is something that's unprecedented. So, if it wasn't this, it'd probably be something else that was more market related in terms of this bubble finally popping.
And that's been the interesting part. Because I had a friend last night who texted me, and basically it was my birthday a couple days ago or whatever. And they basically said, hey, you're 33 now. What would you tell your 20-year-old self? And my answer was, I wouldn't have changed a thing, because look, the easy answer, looking back, it's always easy to say, well, I would have bought more property. I would have, I would have started Google, right? I would have started Snapchat. That's not realistic though. So, when they asked me, what would you have done differently? I said, I wouldn't have done anything differently, because if I would have done something differently, maybe my 33-year-old self is not who I am today. I said, but the one thing that I could speak to was, a solid foundation. and, really understanding the dynamics behind any of this stuff, whether it's the Jonathan Twombly community, the Jake and Gino community, but hearing it from somebody else and getting that foundation, you were aware enough to say, fuck this, right? Like, I got to do something different. Yeah. Now, this pandemic sort of turned the water off immediately, so maybe it shakes things out a little bit quicker than it would have inevitably happened anyway. But I think that, I don't want to say shiny object syndrome because it's a shitty way to say, I tried this, it didn't work. I tried that, it didn't work. And now I'm here. But I think that, there is something to be said about, waving the white flag and saying, okay, this wasn't working. Maybe it's me, maybe it's the market, maybe it's something out of my control, but I think this is the right path. And I think being able to adapt quickly is what helps people, make those, that progress forward, as opposed to always be just sitting there, analysis paralysis. Look at 100 deals and you're always coming out with the same answer. Oh, yeah. You're either underwriting it wrong or there's something else there that's just not going to work. So I commend you for making the transfer or the switch. But it didn't, I'm sure it didn't come without it, pulling some teeth, because I know you do have a good network in that multifamily world. So, making that switch was probably something that you had to give some thought to.
Yeah, it's just really tough to make that switch, in terms of putting in all that time and sweat equity and checking out deals and establishing those relationships in that business. So, it was kind of tough to kind of take a step back, but I think it was good because, I explored the other avenues. They didn't quite work out, but, you kind of learn from that. And now with this new environment that we're in, I think there's going to be more opportunities for additional learning and more opportunities, I believe, for just deals overall. Now, personally, from my business perspective, I'm not quite ready to jump back into multifamily, even though I'm still keeping an eye out for it. I'm ultimately optimistic on it. I think a lot of other more established investors are kind of, I want to say they're more bearish on it right now because of, the need for quarantine. And would you rather be quarantined in, say, a 1,200 square foot home or a 600 square foot apartment? Obviously, you want to be quarantined somewhere where you have a backyard, but
I've been joking around about that. I'm the first one to trash buying a house, and I own a house, and I even for the last 2 years or year I've been in the house, whatever it is, I'd always look online and be like, wow, that's a really nice apartment. It's cheaper. It's better, But now I'm like, thank the fucking God that I have a house. Because I could only imagine being in an 800 or 600 or 900 square foot apartment with no outdoor space. Now I can sit in the backyard, and it rains every day for the last week, but I do feel that this will change the mindsets of some that have been so hell-bent on never owning a house. Maybe it's renting a house, but I can see this being another shift to this, the suburbs, or say, hey, you know what? I was really efficient working from home, and now my company's going to give me a little bit more flexibility. I don't necessarily need to be in an apartment. So it's going to be a really intriguing shift. I don't think it's going to affect our business too much, honestly, because we're not really catering to the rent by choice. It's more rent by necessity, and those people will always rent. But it's going to be interesting. There's going to be a lot of demographic and economic and major shifts ahead, which are going to be going to be interesting. I know on the land front, there's a huge push for like off-grid housing, and that's probably going to go. More people are going to want 10 acres in the middle of nowhere now for who knows what happens in the future, but it's somewhere you can escape to. So I think it's a wise decision, an interesting decision, but there's some compelling stuff coming down the highway.
Yeah, I think all the anti-government, the preppers, so to speak, there's been an uptick in the purchase of rural land, not so much in the infill lot stuff, obviously, because of, the new construction really kind of falling off a cliff. And I'm sure that's going to come back at some point, but it's been a very interesting dynamic. You figure land be one of those things that just kind of falls off the map, because who's got a need for land? Well, everyone's got a need for land in some sort of capacity, but in terms of like recreational land, going out and hunting, but people still do. People just want to get away from humanity.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. It's a compelling space. I've I know Chris actually brought up the idea to me at first, and I thought it was, when I heard it, I was like, wow, it sounds interesting. But no, it's an interesting space, and there's just, like I said, even the multifamily world, I think, and the single family world, there are spaces that are going to get crushed, hotels. Retail. I think some of that is seen. It's got some dark days ahead of it, but there are going to be opportunities. I the other day I was talking to a bank. I reached out to one of our lenders and said, hey, you got any hotel loans? And he said, yeah, we'll sell you one for 75 cents on the dollar. I was like, how about 40 cents on the dollar? And he said, it wasn't like a fuck you, get off the phone. It was, maybe soon. But right now they were willing to take 75 cents on the dollar at the snap of a finger.
Wow.
And that just was like, wow. To me, I just we're a month, 2 months into this thing, and you're already seeing some lenders pulling the ripcord like that. That's going to be an interesting space to see how it shakes out. But I know I have a close acquaintance that owns a couple of hotels, and he was just like, this is going to suck. 9/11 was a 1-day thing and it sucked. This has been a 2-month thing. It's interesting.
You guys follow Ben Mala?
No.
He's like this,
I've heard of him.
Big time hotel retail guy.
He's out of Florida, right?
Millions of dollars in commercial real estate.
Is he a big fat hotels.
Guy? He's that extremely overweight. He's always smoking.
Yep.
He's a real character. That
guy. I saw. I think a friend of mine sent me the video where he was like, "It's over, it's done." Like, I did watch that. So I don't know who he is, but I know I did see the video. I think that you're referring to.
It's pretty intriguing. He's looking to offload his hotel holdings. I think he's got like maybe 5 on hand. So
that's gonna be tough.
Looking to get out of that.
Well, that's because a lot of the stuff I've seen is just a lot of people don't think travel is going to recover to nearly to what it was for several months or even a few years, where, to your point of 9/11 was 1 day and people freaked out for months on end. What does this continued pandemic look like? Because it's not going to go away even if everything opens up tomorrow. We don't even know if it's going to go away ever. We were talking about it before. There's a Italian soccer player, like one of the biggest names, Paulo Dybala. He's been tested positive 4 times in the past 6 weeks, and he doesn't, like he said, he feels fine now. And 2 of his other teammates have been cleared. So you hear about stuff like that, and it just makes you wonder of what is the future actually going to be like. So it might be, hotels at, 75 cents on the dollar of a 60% levered loan is crazy overpaying, because hotels are going to be 75% vacant for the next 18 months. I mean, I don't think anybody has nearly enough information to understand what our world is going to look like for the next 12 months. And when you're in an industry that relies on, people traveling, people interacting a ton, I mean, you're going to be stuck down for a while.
Cause we were actually supposed to be leaving for the Bahamas today. It was like our first family trip. We were taking the baby, just me, my wife, and my daughter.
No,
so we were supposed to be going to the Bahamas, and I didn't cancel anything, right? Because I was like, yeah, let's see what happens. And the hotel immediately, 2 weeks in, was like, hey, we're refunding you money, which I have to double check on, because I don't know if they did yet. And then Delta was the flight, and there was like nothing. And then recently they're like, yeah, no, we'll credit you back your miles. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I'll take that. But I do have a friend also who, his whole business, I mean, he travels 10 hours north, 10 hours south. He lives in South Carolina. And he's always staying in hotels. And the other day he's actually staying in hotels right now. He was in a hotel, and I'm like, wow. He's like, yeah, it's totally different. But I still think there'll be a need for the business side. But I also wonder how that changes too. Because like you said, I mean, what happened? Like there was an article the other day that said, if you really want to beat this, stay quarantined till July. Fuck that, right? Like no way. Like we have a house upstate, and like my mom's like, do you think we're gonna be able to go upstate this summer? I was like, well, I don't care if we're allowed to or not. I am, because whatever, right? At some point, enough's enough. But if it comes back, right? Like if it comes back, like now we're prepared for it. But as Chris mentioned right before, we started, if your medical system can intake the cases, it's just another thing, right? It's not the end of the world. The problem is when you get an influx and an overkill, that's when it starts, snowballing. And that's the thing that's going to be interesting. If it comes back, what happens? Is it quarantine round 2? Is it business as usual? You don't know. And those are the things if that happens and this happens again and again and again, that's when it's just going to get out of control. But I think in the interim, like you said, there will be opportunities. Things are going to happen. There's going to be spaces that take a bath. And I think travel, listen, when this opens up, I'm not going to be thrilled to go jump on a plane and go tour our properties, right? I'm not going to be like, the first one in line, like I'm going to an amusement park. It's going to be what has to get done. But
you might want to be the first one in line, less people.
Well, that's true. Well, so that's another one of my a friend online the other day on Facebook. He posted a picture. He was the only person on the plane.
Yeah.
He was flying home from Florida, and there was literally, the entire plane was empty, and he was the only one there. He's like $39, was able to come home. But it's like, I bet that flight cost more than $39 for United Airlines to fly from Florida to New York. It's like,
I wonder why they haven't shut down the flights, like, just for like day-to-day travelers. I mean,
yeah, that was
like,
I think they have substantially,
like,
but
transport goods and stuff like that, goods and services and essential workers. But beyond that,
yeah, they've shut it down. They've shut them down drastically. But I think, when I read early on, I don't know how accurate this is, so by all means, but I don't care. That you have to maintain your flights to keep your air schedule. So, like, if Delta leaves at 7:00 from JFK or LaGuardia and they're flying into, Hartsfield Jackson, if they don't take that flight, they can lose that time slot, like for the FAA. So they've been flying like ghost planes, just, pilot, co-pilot, up, down, just to maintain their schedules. Now, that was early on in this. I don't think they thought it was going to go this long, but I don't know how that goes now, right? I don't know if they're what it is, but like we see a lot of planes fly over my house while, my backyard, and it's been few and far between. So I know they've cut them down, but it's just interesting. It's like, okay, they decided to keep that flight. Like, is that one of those things? I don't know, but it's compelling. It's going to be interesting to see how all that shakes out. But travel is going to be, there's a lot of businesses that rely heavily on travel. So we'll see how it shakes out.
Well, another important thing too, I was talking to someone and they told me it's not even necessarily going to be the companies that travel a lot that are going to decide. It's going to be up to more who they're traveling to see and whether they're comfortable with somebody coming to see them. So if you're a salesman for a company, the company you're selling to may not want you to come. So it's not really up to you. Like, your company may be all for it, but they're going to be like, we don't want you to come in here. Like, we're staying safe. We're trying to keep people away. You're just on a plane with 300 people packed in. Like, we don't want to be near you. So, I mean, just from that standpoint alone, if, half or 3/4 of, sales people aren't traveling, that's a substantial amount of people every single day that are traveling. I mean, I don't think that's going to be the same for a long, long time. So, I mean, yeah, your airline's going to get crushed. Your hotels are going to get crushed. Your retail is going to get crushed because, I mean, it's all just a trickle down. I don't think, even if we open up tomorrow, I don't see a lot of that stuff recovering very quickly.
It's a severe lack of testing. If they had to test for every man, woman, and child whenever you want it, I think we could open up the economy much more quickly because we have like hard data to work from.
Yeah.
The mortality rate would certainly drop.
Yeah.
Because, we would find out that a lot more people's got this thing. I mean, I had this weird cough a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, wait a minute. Could I have it? I don't know. Because my wife she's a physician at a local hospital. So, I mean, she could have it. I could have it. But because of our inability to get tested, we don't know. So, I mean, and because of that lack of confidence to hit the market, because we're, not just fearing for ourselves, but fearing to infect other people are just going to opt to stay home. And at least until we can get this testing, at least we can ramp up the testing, Well,
that's like, we jokingly, our accountant actually has it. And when I came home, I was on a ski trip out in Montana, and I was sick when I came home. This is February, right? This is like, early March. So this just like started. And I was coughing and sneezing, and I'm in the office. And we were joking around. I mean, everybody was joking. I was like, yeah, no, I'm getting everybody sick right now. And lo and behold, our accountant was in our office. He got sick. And Anthony in our office, he also got corona too. So you
Oh, he
sit there
did?
like, yeah, he did. Anthony had it. He actually called me just now, but but like you said, you know, your wife's in the healthcare world, so you don't know, and you got a cough. And like I remember, I was sitting here, I'm like laying in bed one night, I'm like, I can't breathe. The worst thing to do is go to Google. You type in like, can't breathe, corona. But I never got tested, and even I was on the phone with the accountant yesterday. He's like, yo, go get your test to see if you had it. I'm like, dude, I feel great. If I had it, I had it. But no, it's you're right. You don't know. It's you have no idea. And if there was testing and you would be able to be precautionary, it would make things easier. But I think it was just spurred on us so quickly. It basically just, what were you going to do? And I think early on people thought it was a joke. I mean, I know Don in the office was like, oh, you can't get it unless you like lick someone's saliva. And I was like, that's not true, dude. It doesn't work that way. But it's interesting. It's, Corona world, it is what it is.
Yeah,
I think
my wife was telling me you damn near have to be, on the hospital bed in order to get tested. You got to show clear-cut symptoms of having the flu. Just weird coughing and fever and all that. But I find that to be weird.
It is, but you know what? It's the straw that broke the camel's back, and the real estate world is going to benefit. Some people are going to take baths, but there's going to be great opportunity, and I think that's where getting involved in something and understanding it, and that's going to be the thing that's the most interesting that comes out of this. Is there anything you look forward to in the real estate world in the next 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, so on and so forth? I know there's opportunities, but what opportunity comes your way that you dive all over and are thrilled by?
I'm really looking forward to picking up some single family homes on the cheap within the next 12 months. And then getting I wouldn't say a BOGO because there's only so much I can buy. So that's why I'm really trying to build up my transactional, my capital through this land investing business, build that up to where I can really buy up some properties here in Atlanta. I'm looking at in the Cartersville submarket right now, mainly in 2 zip codes, the 30120 and the 30121. I find that to be a very intriguing market. It's got like some pretty solid fundamentals, population growth, all that. It's got like 4 or 5 Starbucks in the market, which I like. I just look at it.
That's a nice
Starbucks. You can't go wrong.
What a houses in that area go for, and where for anyone listening, if they find a deal, bring it to Rashad. If not, if someone wanted to say, okay, this is the research that I look for. What are the numbers for you, right? Starbucks in an area, fantastic.
Yes.
What do those houses rent for? What can you buy them for? Or what do you want to buy them for? Not what do they sell for, but all that stuff.
So you can rent about a 3-2, 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 2-car garage rancher right now for about close to $1,500 a month in rent. Just your standard, maybe 80s, 90s vintage.
Yep.
You can have
brick.
Yes, brick. You can actually have a brand new 3-2, 2-car garage built for about $190. Okay. I find that to be very interesting. So I'm looking forward to now, obviously, I mean, the numbers won't work if there's a builder out there that can make the numbers work where they can build a rental I wouldn't say far under the median price. The median price right now for that market is about $157,000 for, that's the median house price.
Yep.
When you were saying build, not to cut you off, was that including the land or not?
That's including the land.
So that it may actually make sense because your expense costs are going to be so much lower. You're not going to have to budget nearly as much for reserves or CapEx because if everything's brand new built and they do a good job, you can be a little bit more skinny there. That's why Class A developments, their expense ratios are 35 to 40% instead of 45 to 55%. It may make more sense. I know because everybody wants the 1 to 2% rule, right? So if you got a $150,000 house, you want $1,500 in rent or more. Yep. But for brand new developed, low headache type deal with probably a pretty quality tenant, it might still make sense. And if older stuff is renting for $1,500, what's your rent for something brand new built? You might get an extra $100 to maybe even $300 for that. I don't know. I wouldn't be shocked if it didn't make some sort of sense. You might have to take a little bit of a trimming on your returns, but it sounds compelling.
Oh yeah. And in fact, you just put down a solid 30% for something like that.
Yeah.
And you just get yourself a couple of houses just like that. And maybe about a 4 to 5 year period, once multifamily really starts roaring back, you kind of 1031 exchange those into a couple multifamily deals. And there you go. So that's my strategy right now.
That's awesome.
Will the 1031 still be around? I don't know. I think it will be, but I mean, now with all this inflation going on, I mean, you guys have really been talking about that. And I've seen a couple of your episodes where we've been talking about all this printing of money that's been hitting the market. We're going to have to pay for it in higher taxes, obviously, at some point.
Something's got to give, right?
Something's
That's. I was talking to two people. I was talking to Chris the other day, right? It's you can't pull every lever at once and think everything's going to work, right? There's give and takes across the world, across the whole spectrum, right? They're just printing money. I think it's like $3 trillion. They're just pumping into the economy right now to keep it okay. Well, that costs money, right? Someone's going to pay for it somewhere. And, what is that? There are things I was on doing something for somebody for like a guest speaking event. And I remember there was a broker talking about the 1031 and he said they would never extend the deadline. They're never going to do that. Literally like a week and a half later, they changed all the deadlines for anyone that was in a 1031. They said, hey, no, we're going to give you forgiveness and you can push it out and don't worry about the clock. So you don't know. You have no idea. And you're right. Are they going to get rid of it? Who knows? But something's going to have to give. Something's going to have to give in one way or the other. But I think what I like is that you went down the path and you realized it wasn't working. You made it. You called an audible. You have the business plan set up, and then it's back to execution, which I think is the name of the game. You could change your mind in this business and tweak it one way or the other, but you got to have a strategy and you got to implement that strategy. So that's super important. And picking up $150,000 to $200,000 houses where there's 4 or 5 Starbucks in the zip code. That's 4 or 5 Starbucks in my zip code. I wish I could buy a house for $150,000.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah, I mean, I've really got laser focused on, I figure, I'm following this guy right now. His name is Michael Zuber. He's based out in Fresno, and he was really talking about the importance of focusing on a single market. And I really took that to heart because I was kind of, even though I was kind of exploring all these avenues in different markets, I think at the end of the day, I think it's a really smart strategy to focus not just maybe on a sub-market, but maybe on a single zip code, maybe 2. And just really getting laser focused on that market, really understanding all the nuances and the price points and all that, and how things are shifting over a period of months, quarters, maybe over a year, 18 months to see how the market shakes out.
He's a good guy. We had him on our podcast. He was like probably in the 30s, right?
Oh yeah. Oh man, I gotta check that out. I didn't
older
realize
than
you guys had him on. Oh,
no.
Okay.
Episodes.
Oh, episode?
Oh, episode 30? Okay.
It might have been. It could be. It may be in the late 20s, maybe late 20s.
Yeah, I don't know. No, he's awesome. I love watching his stuff.
He's a really good guy. He had a very specific. He did what he did beautifully, right? Like I even said it on the podcast. I envy him that he has no investors. It's his own money. Like that's just a super compelling. That's awesome because you just don't have to answer to anybody. So that's a really compelling situation.
Yeah, going through Jonathan Twombly's course with the syndication, because I think that piece of of my understanding was missing. So I went through his course and understood it. I was like, man, that's a lot of work you guys do in terms of
episode
14.
Episode 14?
Yeah.
Episode 14? Wow. Yeah. Okay.
We're doing it longer than
I'll check that one out.
I know. That's what the other day I saw how many episodes we were at, and I was like, shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys are putting in work.
I've seen other people that have been doing this for a couple of years, and I was like, wow, like we're pumping out the content. By the way, I give Chris all the credit in the world. I suck at this stuff.
You guys are doing pretty well.
But I've gotten so many compliments on the LinkedIn videos. Like, you guys are doing an amazing thing. I was like, whoa. I may be getting credit for some of this shit, but Chris is doing an amazing job. I'm along for the ride. It's, I just, I'm dumb enough to say yes to shit. But no, I can't believe it. Wow. We've been doing this for a little bit of time now.
Well, I got to give thanks to you guys because you guys exposed me to really taking the land business seriously. Because I've been looking at it for like maybe a while, but you guys had on the guys from Casual Fridays REI.
Justin and Adam.
Yeah, Justin and Adam. I was like, man, those guys are really down to earth. And I checked them out some more, and I started checking out their podcasts. And they do like these cool, like quick 10, 15-minute podcast episodes, like 3 days a week. I was like, man, it's pretty compelling stuff. And I really looked into them, and I liked what I heard. And I just went all in on their course. And like, man, this is super simple process of this land business. I mean, I was looking at other stuff before from, what's the other guy's name who's more established? Like Seth Williams, is his name? Seth Williams? And there's another guy with the Land Academy. But I thought those guys were kind of like a little bit too, I don't know. I thought they were a little bit too polished for me. I don't know.
They're like the 800-pound gorillas in a room, Seth Williams and the Land Academy guys. But the Casual Friday guys are good guys. I like them a lot. But there you go. Anybody listening, see, we actually do put out good stuff. We put out 2 great podcasts on land, and it stuck in someone's head to take action.
Let's be honest. If they're sticking around for 45 minutes in this, they probably already agree with you anyway. So we'll have to move this section to the very front.
That's true. That's the intro. It's we actually put out good content.
Oh, yeah, man. So, I mean, there is a business model out there for every market. And right now, what I really like about land is that you're able to spend your own capital and you put down maybe 5, 10, 15, 20% of market value or price of market value, in terms of your blind offers that you put out. And, because like, if you're trying to buy an asset in this stage of the cycle, which is clearly a recessionary period, I mean, it's like you're trying to catch a falling knife, but
I mean, the land flipping business from a 30,000 foot view always made sense. You're buying assets way below market value from people who have literally no value for them because they didn't buy them, they inherited them or something else. And you're going to do the work to go out there and find the right end buyer for that spread. I mean, that just makes a ton of sense. It's house flipping, but significantly simpler from an organizational, type standpoint, right? House flipping, you can get creative and add extensions and different things and stuff like that. Land is land. Like you're not really, unless you're going to buy infill locations and get them shovel ready and flip them to developers. Mm-hmm. But that's a significantly tougher business to get into in general. So the premise of it always made a lot of sense and was super attractive from that standpoint. And also the ability to get in for very little dollars, but also the ability to scale it to a pretty decent size too was always pretty attractive. I do think you're a little bit capped. I think it's tough to really grow a medium, big size business, like really grow it to like, if you wanted a business with like multiple people working under you, you wanted 7 figures in revenue. I think that's pretty tough unless you want to do a ton of volume. Because I think you're just so capped on what the value of land is, unless, again, you go into infill locations and you're going to do different things like that. Mm-hmm. I do think you're capped, but from a, work at home, try to do it yourself, have some VAs automate it for you. Makes a ton of sense.
As I said, if you're looking for a little business, a little project, right? Maybe you can make millions and millions of dollars, but like you said, you have so much time. And if you're looking for just something to put, a little hobby here or there, you could do well. And like you say, it just your intake volume has got to be crazy. There are people sending out 6,000 mailers a week, right? Like it's a lot of work, but you don't have to do that. So it's a compelling little piece. But I think it's just another way to get involved in real estate, doing something.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you're active in something, right? Or at least you're actively trying to do it and seeing how it works, and you're not falling by the wayside of analysis paralysis. One could argue that you could start looking into the land business and it's like, oh, am I putting the mailers together right? And then they're constantly on the Facebook groups asking this question, that question, but not taking action. It's like, I mean, if you got a question about the mailer, send it out, test it.
Exactly.
But it does. It doesn't work. Okay, switch it up. On the next one.
There you go.
Love it. Awesome. I think that's a fantastic place to wrap it up. Rashad, thank you so much for coming on. If anybody wants to learn more about you, get in touch with you, follow you, where can they do that?
Oh, I just got an email. rnelson@kjmpg.com. rnelson@kjmpg, I'm sorry, rnelson@kjmpg.com. That's basically how you can reach me.
Beautiful. Love it. Guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you are not subscribed to the podcast, please do so. And if you are already subscribed, please send it to somebody you think would like this episode or others. It would mean the world to John and I. Rashad, thank you so much again for coming on. It was brilliant.
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks so much.
Thanks, brother.
Awesome. Good stuff, bud.
Sorry about that. I lost my train of thought during some of those